Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Joseph Ho in Whitehorse. We begin tonight in the Yukon, where plaster miners waiting for renewed licenses will be allowed to work until they are approved. The Yukon government made the announcement yesterday. It comes after miners and advocates went public about renewal delays that were jeopardizing their livelihoods. Some miners had been waiting in limbo for over a year. Chris McIntyre has the latest.
It's an announcement that many plaster miners have been anxiously waiting to hear. On Thursday, the territory announced it would be issuing temporary extensions to eligible license holders while it works through the backlog of permit approvals and license renewals. The territory made temporary amendments to the placer mining land use regulation and the quartz mining land use regulation to approve extensions. It also made temporary additions to the waters regulation to keep water usage consistent with the terms of the existing licenses. John Stryker is the Minister of Energy, Mines and Resources. He says extensions will be given to operators whose licenses are close to expiring, including 19 operators whose licenses recently expired while in queue for renewal. Extensions will also be given to previously approved projects that have been through the First Nations consultation process and are within the temporal, spatial, and activity scope of the decision documents already in place.
The way we're looking at this is because those mines have already been operating, we already did consultation and engagement on them, we can allow them to continue in a temporary way while we work through all of the backlog.
Stryker said this doesn't change the license renewal or permitting approval process, but it's a temporary way to keep people working while still following regulations. He added that his department has already begun contacting placer miners to notify them of the extension. Will Fellers is the president of the Klondike Plaster Miners Association. He said he was very glad to hear about the new changes, but he wants to speak with the minister before he gets too excited about anything just yet.
Well, that's great if that's the case. Yeah, and like I said, I haven't been briefed on it yet. This is just new, and so it'll be interesting to hear from John exactly what the specifics are of this. But if that is the case, then yeah, that's a great step in getting the operators back, being able to go out into the land and back to work again.
Feller says he's happy with the outcome and grateful for the support from local businesses and industry. Chris McIntyre, CBC News, Dawson City.
In the Northwest Territories, the Chief Public Health Officer has declared the end of a 21-day monitoring period for new measles cases. Dr. Cami Candola gave exposure notices this month for 2 businesses and 3 schools. That came after confirming a single case of the virus. In a notice yesterday, Candola's office confirmed no new cases have been detected. While the territorial situation is considered resolved, 3 Albertans are in hospital as measles cases continue to climb. 2 of those patients are in the ICU. Alberta reported 26 new cases yesterday, 2 in northern Alberta. Candola says the risk of travelers bringing measles into the territory remains high. The Kativik regional government is requesting an audit of Nunvik Police. It passed a resolution yesterday calling for 2 things: a review of police practices and for policing to better reflect Inuit culture. It comes as the police service strikes a new funding deal with government partners. Samuel Watt has more.
The Kativik regional government wants Nunvik police practices to be more reflective of Inuit culture. KRG's Thursday resolution calls for a review and audit of police operations. Police Chief John Bielero says he's in full support of the review.
Somebody thinks outside the box, a specialist or whatever, to help us find solution.
The review follows 2 fatal police shootings in 7 months in Saluit and Kangaksualujuak. Nunvik Police struck a new 5-year deal with the regional, provincial and federal governments worth $562 million. LaRose says they'll be put towards retention of staff and restarting a cadet program in a bid to recruit more Inuit. Mylène Jacou was in charge of Indigenous policing issues in a Quebec inquiry. They looked into allegations of police misconduct against Indigenous women. Jacou says the review must look into the policing model itself.
It's necessary just in terms of respect of the Constitution, the right to the self-determination.
She says other provinces have a complaints agency and inspector general role, and also a well-known hub model that partners other agencies like schools, mental health and addiction centres with police. The police chief, however, doesn't believe the police model needs reform.
Certainly we can improve it or adjust it, but right now we have positive results.
KRG still needs to select an auditor for this review. They expect the results this fall. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Some Yellowknife parents are raising concerns over how the government notified them about lead levels in two schools' drinking water. The territorial government now says it received initial test results from William McDonald Middle School and Range Lake North School back in January. But parents and staff only found out this week. Nadir Hashmi reports on the fallout.
High lead levels were first detected at two Yellowknife schools months ago, but parents and staff weren't notified until now. One parent whose children attend Range Lake North School says she's disappointed with how long it took the government to inform them.
I'm really disappointed that it took so long for such important information to make it to the school and to the parents.
The Education Minister, Caitlin Cleveland, said in a statement Wednesday night that both schools are now undergoing system-wide testing. A third-party review of the situation is also underway. Milua says she's glad the government is looking into it further.
I guess I have peace of mind now knowing that they are testing for it and that they have found it, but it makes you wonder what other dangers are in the water and potentially at the kids' schools that we're not aware of in the infrastructures.
The territorial government says it received first lead concentration results for the two impacted schools in January, and those results were confirmed in April. Since then, the Education Department says it has been working with the Office of the Chief Public Health Officer to, quote, interpret the results, determine appropriate next steps, and plan for additional sampling to fully understand the extent of the issue. Drinking water was shut off this week. Another parent whose children attend Sir John Franklin and St. Patrick's School is also frustrated with the slow response.
It's too slow. It's way too slow. That it's wildly inappropriate. They found out in January, and then it took them a further 2 months to get it confirmed, and now we're finding out like more than a month later. Like it's June.
Kupo also questions why drinking water wasn't shut off in January as a precaution. She says the situation hasn't been handled properly. In a response today addressing that gap in time, the government said it is standard practice to begin with initial samples and conduct follow-up testing as needed. They said health experts also raised questions about the gathering methods and whether that could have affected the results. So it's as a precautionary measure that the Chief Public Health Officer recommended the water not be consumed until further notice. At Eco William McDonald, lead levels in the drinking water were measured at 0.00903 milligrams per litre. At Range Lake North School, the level was 0.025 milligrams per litre. Canada's drinking guidelines set the maximum acceptable level at 0.005 milligrams per litre. President of the Northwest Territories Teachers Association says they only learned about the elevated lead levels this week through media reports. She says there's been no formal communication from the GNWT. She hopes a third-party review happens soon.
Timing is really crucial here for the just the well-being of everybody, students and staff at the school, so that everybody is aware of really what's going on, what's the potential impact.
Mueller says they'll be following up with the Education Board and Education Department during a regular meeting scheduled next week. The officials with the most knowledge of the testing and high lead levels have declined interview requests, including the Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Cami Condola, the Department of Health and Social Services, Education Minister Caitlin Cleveland, and the Education Department. Nadir Hashmi, CBC News, Yellowknife.
People in Samba, Northwest Territories are keeping a close eye on the fire situation. The NWT government's wildfire map shows 3 fires burning nearby. The closest one is roughly 30 kilometers from the community. It's also the largest at about 500 hectares or 5 square kilometers. We've spoken to residents and so far they say they are safe. A spokesperson for NWT Fire says Samba is not at imminent risk because much of the land around it has already burned. NWT Fire's latest update says crews are setting up equipment to protect cabins and infrastructure near the fires. The community is also dealing with smoke blowing in from wildfires in BC and Alberta. Meanwhile, the Yukon is sending wildland firefighters to Alberta and Saskatchewan. 5 initial crews left for Alberta today. The Yukon is also sending its heavy air tanker. It is a touch-and-go situation in Flin Flon, Manitoba. After holding back a wildfire for more than 2 days, winds are expected to shift, pushing the fire closer to the city. Cameron McIntosh has more on the situation there and in other communities in Manitoba.
At least 20 wildfires are burning across Manitoba. Right now, the future of the city of Flin Flon rests on wind direction. For 2 days now, a fire line about 2 kilometers outside the city is held, but winds are expected to change, blowing northwest, pushing the fire back towards the city about 600 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg. On Wednesday, an evacuation order saw most of the city's 5,000 residents leave. As of now, only firefighters and emergency personnel remain. Premier Wab Kinew spoke this afternoon.
The situation there is very, very serious, and we are doing everything that we can to preserve life, but also to preserve people's livelihoods and homes in the region.
Flin Flon's mayor being very clear the city is in peril.
We've seen devastation across the country in different communities where this has happened, and there's a very, very high potential that it's going to happen here.
It's going to be hit or miss, Mother Nature, what can you do? So it's rebuilding, that goes through your mind.
About 100 kilometers north of Flin Flon, another fire threatens Matthias Coulomb Cree Nation. Helicopters, boats, and now Canadian Armed Forces planes are being used to evacuate hundreds from the community. Further east, the Air Force is also using Hercules aircraft to move a few thousand residents of Pimichikamak Cree Nation, who fled to a neighboring community after fire cut off access to their airport and highway south, which is briefly being reopened today. All told, about 17,000 people are trying to leave their homes in Manitoba. Meanwhile, as wildfires grow across Western Canada, Canadian firefighting resources are being stretched. International help is being called in. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
As you heard Cameron McIntosh say there, some residents of First Nations in northern Manitoba have successfully been evacuated, but some are still waiting. Yesterday, the armed forces helped transport over 100 community members out of Puckatawagan. But last night, the airport and the only way out closed due to smoke. Rosanna Hempel has more.
Engulfed in smoke, the airport in remote Puckatawagan closed Thursday night. 28 people crowded into Serena Moore's home, and then this happened overnight.
We heard, sounded like an explosion. That's why we went outside, and when I went outside, there was a lot of things falling from the sky, and I didn't know what it was until I turned my light on my camera and I seen the ashes, and it was very scary.
More than 2,000 community members, including babies and elders, were trapped by flames and heavy smoke.
I don't think most of anybody slept in the community. Like, everybody was in panic mode. Like, people were getting their boats ready, canoes.
On Friday, helicopters began landing near the youth center, transporting about 6 people out at a time to the PA, a city 200 kilometers south. Rose Linklater says the evacuation has been chaotic and hectic, with nearly no communication from officials.
We wait for an update or something. Like, most of the time, in the past 2-3 days, we've been left in the dark, and people are just like more scared, unsure, because we see the fire.
Band councillors in Winnipeg urging the province in Ottawa for more support fast.
We need some action, and that's the reason why we're here.
You know, the call went out days ago while we had an airstrip. We asked, we pleaded, it fell on deaf ears.
Meanwhile, evacuees who had fled Cross Lake, Pimichikamak to Norway House Cree Nation are being flown out in military Hercules aircrafts. Chief David Monia says about 1,000 people stranded in Cross Lake can now drive out on the highway to Winnipeg. Meanwhile, in Puckatawagan, people wait for a safe way out too. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Further east in Labrador, emergency crews continue to battle a wildfire burning near Churchill Falls. It's now being held. Officials say winds are blowing the fire away from the community. The fire is estimated at about 170 hectares in size. Some wet weather is expected to start on Saturday and continue for several days, which could help firefighters.
As I looked upon the battlefield in front of me, a German star shell lit up the desolate landscape. I watched as a bullet smashed through the bridge of my nose and left me to the mercy of the darkness. I worried I would be dependent on others for the rest of my life. But Sir Arthur Pearson and the staff of St. Dunstan's had other plans. With their help, I knew I could be self-reliant, and I wanted to bring this idea home to Canada. I wanted Canadians to know that we could hold jobs, that we could contribute, that regardless of sight, all would read, that we, the blind, would shape our own lives, our own destiny.
Blinded by a sniper's bullet in 1915, Edwin A. Baker went on to co-found the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, shaping a path forward for the blind across Canada for generations to come.
This astonishing world, with its infinite possibilities, calls to the world shapers, impact makers, visioneers. Together, let's unlock potential everywhere.
Welcome to your new home.
Mais il est trop chaud. He understands French. I'm not seeing this as a suicide.
Someone sure wanted us to think it was.
Gallagher is suspect number one.
Tell me, was it the man's politics you didn't like, or the fact that he's living with your wife?
I know he's into something. I just gotta prove it.
No, we all have a past. Find his.
Be careful around Fitz. Donnie's got a lot of demons that tend to appear when no one expects it.
New year, new school, new uniform. High school was a chance at reinvention, a whole new me. Who to join? Jocks? Nerds? This was life or death.
Take a risk. Life's short. Don't waste it living someone else's life. Just live your own.
Sometimes you find yourself in the right place at the right time. And if you're there with the right people, well, it doesn't get any better than that.
I brought a few friends along with me today.
3, 2, 1.
Mom, you're embarrassing me in front of the dragons.
Take me home, James.
Full of surprises here on The Den. Dragon's Den. Watch free on CBC Gem.
12 of Britain's best amateur bakers have made it to the tent.
This is an absolute dream.
Every inch of their baking skill will be scrutinised.
Lovely jubbly.
Those that falter will leave the tent.
One wrong move and it's over.
The voice of small businesses in the Yukon could soon be going quiet. The Yukon Chamber of Commerce will put forward a motion to dissolve at its upcoming annual general meeting. The chamber has been a small business advocate for 40 years, but it says today there are numerous industry groups and associations, and they're all competing for membership fees.
I, as a small business person, have 5 industry memberships right now across the things that are relevant to either for professional development or networking or advocacy, and it's not sustainable.
Balsley says the chamber has also faced high turnover on its volunteer board. She hopes the motion to dissolve will spark a debate about how the business community moves forward. Members will vote on the motion on June 11th. The U.S. side of the famed Chilkoot Trail will reopen on Sunday, but hikers won't be able to retrace the full route of Gold Rush stampeders. The U.S. portion was closed during the COVID pandemic. That was followed by 2 years of historic flooding. Trails have now been groomed and bridges and campsites rebuilt. Visitors can travel as far as 27 kilometers from Dyea in Alaska to the Chilkoot Pass, or you can hike from Bennett, BC, 26 kilometers to the Chilkoot Pass. However, no further because the U.S.-Canada border is closed. Canadian and U.S. Parks officials, along with Border Services, are working on a proposal to reopen it. It is the exact route that Donald Trump's grandfather used to travel to Canada, where he made his fortune during the Klondike Gold Rush. In Nunavik, work is underway to provide clean energy to the communities of Quaqtuck and Puvirnituk through the use of wind turbines. An agreement has been signed between Tak-Kuti Energy Corporation and Hydro-Quebec. Tak-Kuti Energy Corporation will develop the project. Energy produced by the turbines will be sold to Hydro-Quebec, which will then sell power to building owners in the communities. A spokesperson for Hydro-Quebec says the project is a big step forward for sustainability in the region.
To provide for close to 60% of electricity needs in these villages. So that's 60% of electricity needs met by renewable energy. And with that, we'll be able to avoid the use of 96 million liters of diesel over 25 years.
One wind turbine is planned for Quaqtuck and should be delivering energy to the community in 2028. 3 turbines are planned to come online in Puvirnituk in 2029. You may have seen them. Ads on social media advertising oral drops and other diabetes-related products. Now, Diabetes Canada is warning consumers that these products might actually be fake after it received a surge in calls from people who fell for the scam postings. Alison Northcott has more.
When you open the box, you have this gadget.
Joel Snitman thought he was ordering a device to monitor his blood sugar to help manage his type 2 diabetes after seeing an ad on Facebook appearing to be endorsed by Diabetes Canada. But the product he got wasn't what was advertised.
I got sucked in, then obviously there'd be other people to get sucked in, and I wanted Diabetes Canada to know that some crooked outfit was using their logo.
Diabetes Canada says it's heard from more than 300 people complaining of similar ads.
Slimming and Health Boost drops.
It says it never endorses any medical products.
If you live with diabetes and you are seeing a health product, you think, oh, that looks interesting, and it's endorsed by Diabetes Canada, you need to know that's false.
The organization has tried to get the ads pulled down. In a statement, Facebook's owner, Meta, said it has removed some of the ads in question flagged to them by CBC News and is still investigating. But when one ad disappears, Diabetes Canada says another pops up, and the confusion that creates makes an already complicated disease even harder to manage.
If they wind up going on a whole trajectory of taking something or using something that isn't helpful, who knows, perhaps harmful, then they risk having a worsening of their condition.
Some ads have also used logos for Obesity Canada and even Health Canada, but the companies pushing the products can be hard to track down.
We are working with our legal team to hopefully reach out to them and cease and desist.
Health Canada told us the product Joel Snitman thought he was buying is not on the list of authorized medical devices in Canada. Diabetes Canada says anyone considering a monitoring device or a treatment found online should talk to their doctor first. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
The collapse of a glacier in Switzerland this week has renewed the focus on global warming and the increasing dangers from it. The village of Blatten was buried under millions of cubic meters of ice, mud, and rock that crashed down a mountain. The 300 residents had already been evacuated after part of the mountain behind the glacier began to crumble. Scientists say the loss of inland glaciers impacts those who rely on them for drinking water and agriculture. They also say there is no way to stop the melting. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/north. I'm Joseph Ho. Thank you for watching. Good night from Whitehorse.